Hi guys, thanks for joining. This is Alberto speaking from Rev Engine. I'm also with my colleague Maggie from Merz Consult. Hello Maggie.
Hello. Hello everyone.
Excellent. So thanks very much for your time. So the reason why we're here today is because we wanted to cover a topic that we think is very important for emerging sales executives in technology companies, which is hiring the right talent. So the reason why this is important is because, nobody wants to spend a fortune hiring and having a salespeople on role simply to find out a few months down the line that they're not the right person and they have to leave the company without, delivering any results. That right, Maggie?
Absolutely. I mean, can you imagine the effort, the resources, the money that goes into hiring, and there's a good level of emotional involvement as well. So I think when it comes to hiring the right sales talent, the better you can get at it, the better it is for the organization, both in the short term as well as long term.
Absolutely. And I don't know, guys, I mean, you CEOs of emerging technology companies, did you know that it takes about 6 months for the average salespeople to start selling, and that the cost of hiring those people is about 150% of their basic salary, which I believe in around London is about 45 to 50K. So you do the math. It's very important to crack this and to get the right people on board. And so Maggie and I have been working together for quite a while now, and we worked in a particular organization that was really, really good at hiring relatively junior salespeople and turning them into revenue machines. And the 4 key criteria, Maggie, do you remember that criteria? What that criteria was basically drive.
I do. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you want me to list them out?
Yeah, sure.
So your audience knows what we're going to talk about. So the 4 criteria or traits that we believe are really important when it comes to hiring is drive, sales acumen, intellect, executive presence. And I did say to Alberto, as we started discussing this, I was going to add sense of purpose, because that is also a key attribute for our top sales people to have, to be able to move things forward in confidence.
Absolutely. And that just ties in very nicely with drive. So what is drive? So drive is the most important characteristic of a salesperson, I would say. And it's basically what keeps you going in the darkest times of daily rejection. It makes you basically stand up and wake up after a daily fall. And this particular company we used to work for were really good, because what they would do was to try and understand what made you tick as an individual. What was your particular objective? What you wanted to achieve in life? And then they would try to understand if you had a strategy to achieve that objective. And what they would do is to try and connect the daily number of calls, meetings, and everything that you were doing at your job on a daily basis with achieving that particular objective of yours. And remember that, Maggie?
I do. And thinking back now, I'm like, wow, because if you can't really identify what motivates or what drives someone, then work done could easily be reversing back to zero, because the drive is what pushes someone to actually get up, especially on the dark days, and go, I still want to do this, because whatever the challenges I'm facing, it's nothing compared to this big thing that I'm looking to achieve. And for instance, an example of someone who wants to buy this big mansion, or it could be their first house, and at that particular moment, that is the drive for them. And so connecting, the role or the activities in the job that you're hiring them for, or enabling them to be able to connect to that during their the interviewing process is really important, because then it comes alive for them. They can say, well, if this is the case, then me being able to do X number of activities to close X number of deals and to get, you know, this amount of commission equals me being able to save for this deposit, or to furnish the house, or to, you know, to do the construction of my new kitchen, that kind of thing. So I think it's really important, and it's not only material things. You know, for some people, it's something different. You know, if they wanted to be able to go and donate, you know, X number of money to a charity that they strongly care about, they should be able to connect this drive behind their actions with their role, so then it brings more meaning to what they do.
Absolutely. I remember back in the day, my dream was to build a hotel and to be able to manage that hotel with my family. So every day, every call I made, every meeting I had, no matter how many rejections, I would picture that hotel, and that would keep me going.
Absolutely.
So tip for you, ensure that you understand what drives your candidate, and make a clear connection with between them achieving their dreams and achieving your quota. Then all you need to do is make sure that you have the right tools and the right metrics in place to measure the performance, to identify areas where they need improvement, and help give them the right support. You'll be amazed at the results.
Absolutely.
Great. So that's the first item, drive. The second would be sales acumen, and I think this is also an important factor. I have seen companies hire senior salespeople with 20 odd years of experience who manage to actually sell almost nothing after a long time working for that company. And in fact, not only didn't they sell too much, but also they managed to distract other people in sales organizations who wanted to help them close a transatlantic pipeline with 100 zeros that actually never closed. So it's an important, it's a convention to think, especially for small vendors, we need a heavy hitter who come in and miraculously help us sell this into their contact network. And sometimes it's not what you need. Would you agree with that, Maggie?
I would totally agree. And also I would say, the way we used to sell is changing quite dramatically. And so, gone are the days when you see a salesman, just walk into the room and then they'll pick up this gadget and go, this is magic and that is magic, and, it's going to solve your problem. It doesn't necessarily work that way. And to be honest, I have spoken to a lot of, sales executives who are kind of struggling with the new way of selling. Because the new way of selling, it's taking a different tune altogether. And so sales acumen in itself is evolving. So yes, there is a commission that comes after a sale has been done. And a lot of salespeople, traditional salespeople, are motivated by that. But things have moved on a bit. And so now sales acumen is also to do with how they're connecting with people, how they're identifying what someone really needs in order to actually connect with them, and to actually identify how they can solve that problem for them, and then link it back to the solution that they have to sell. So sales acumen works on so many different levels now, and so it's important that the salesperson of the new world doesn't necessarily think that it's just about going in and doing a sell, but it's also about the nuances around the sell and how to adapt to make this work for them. So yeah,
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And not only, we have seen companies fail, companies who have hired a super sales guru fail because they didn't have the characteristics they needed, or they assumed wrongly that they didn't need any training. We've also seen people walked out of organizations, salespeople leaving the organization after a few weeks, as the relationships with management started to deteriorate because they couldn't see the sales they were hoping for. And this is sometimes a challenge in itself, because if you don't have other metrics to measure the progression day by day, then all of a sudden you'll come to realize that 3, 4, 5 months have passed, your salespeople are not selling, what do we do now? Do we sack them? Do we get more people and expect the same to happen again? So in these cases, I think what probably makes sense, Maggie, and I don't know if you agree, is to have a set of KPIs in place to measure that daily performance and make sure that those guys are doing the things that they're supposed to do, the right number of calls, the right number of meetings, to again make sure that things are on track and avoid surprises later down the line.
Yes,
what do you
absolutely, absolutely. And having these KPI in place, and also linking that KPI from kind of the immediate timelines when we're expecting these results to happen, and also being able to paint the picture of the longer term is really important. Now you see that a lot of companies are now introducing prospect journey maps or client journey maps, because that helps them understand the immediate gratifications that they're going to look at in terms of low-hanging fruit and how they're going to close them, the activities that they need to do to close some of the low-hanging fruits, but also the longer-term strategies in terms of upselling, cross-selling opportunities. But you need someone with that sales acumen to understand the correlation between their KPIs, the activities. I mean, you can't hire a salesperson who can't do the activity. So the activity directly links to that. The importance of building strong relationships links to that. But they should be able to be the type of person who has that level of sales acumen to understand that, yes, they have to, in the short term, close the deals if they follow the structured enablement processes in place, but also look at the longer term in terms of what is also going to be a bigger reward for them.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's just better to hire relatively junior salespeople with some sales experience and make sure that you provide them with the right onboarding, sales methodologies, process, and tools they need to be successful. And also know your numbers, know how many calls you make a day, how many meetings you need to set up to be able to close a deal within a certain time frame, so that you know that that's the kind of activity that they should be having. Again, don't go crazy on gurus. Have a look at what your competitors are doing. Have your numbers. Make sure you have the right materials in place and just help them out. You'll be surprised.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Good. I think the third one is intellect. I mean, obviously, nobody wants a dumb salesperson, and that's not what we're applying here, right? So the point that we're trying to make is that, the salesperson must be able to read the room, to understand who's present, understand their wants and needs, be aware of the context and the people within that context and what's happening around them. Good salespeople have to relate to buyers and vice versa. People buy from the people who's selling to them, not the technology. So sometimes this is very, very useful to bear in mind. Don't you think, Maggie?
Absolutely. I mean, intellect is really, really important. And, when it comes to that, you're also looking at, the clock speed of that person. So how they're able to adapt, because even within the space of a meeting itself, a lot can change. So how are they switched on, to move away from the scripts that they had already prepared for this meeting, purely because the dynamics of the meeting has changed.
Absolutely.
And how apt are they to be able to switch on and change their maybe quarterly sales strategy because things have changed in the marketplace, or things have changed in their prospects organization. I'll give you an example. I remember one particular year I was given X territory, and my plan was to kind of look at how I can go and find more prospects or build new business. And I started that quarter really positive that this was going to happen. And then suddenly I realized kind of halfway through that it wasn't going to happen, because obviously this was a new territory to me, and how I had planned in terms of getting new prospects into the territory wasn't working that way in terms of closed deals. I realized that those deals were going to take longer to come in, but I needed the immediate deals to close. So what I had done was change tact immediately and go with another approach, which was kind of more of a retention strategy, but retention with a lot of upsell opportunities. And so then I changed my plan in terms of the X number of new business that was coming into that territory. That was still going to be there, but then my immediate plan to actually balance the shortfall that was coming into my territory in terms of non-renewals and other things was to make sure that I was going to then get double or triple buying centers within each of those accounts. And that was something that worked really well because these were relationships that existed already. And so it was easier for me to deepen those relationships and get them to buy extra, services for other people within the organizations, or to upgrade the existing services within the organization. And that year, I did very well and was able to kind of match or upsell to the extent of overachieving my target for that quarter. But you need that level of intellect to say, I need to switch, I need to come back. And, so you should be responsive to a lot of things that happen in your sales environment, whether this is internally within your organization, externally within your client's organization, or externally within the marketplace, or things that happened in the environment to switch the buying, habits of your salespeople, your buyers or your customers. So that level of intellect is really important. And again, during your screening process for a real ideal sales candidate, you should be able to kind of see how they will react to those instances. Things like, asking them to tell stories, or you telling a story and see how they relate to it, are very good ways of, telling how switched on they can be in a sales environment to be able to be successful.
Absolutely. Role plays are just fantastic for spotting intellect in sales candidates. I remember one particular instance where we were in this scenario role play where I had to sell to one of the managing salespeople, and the guy, all of a sudden, he woke up and left the room and said, "Okay, so I'll see you later." And I thought, what's this? Oh, you have an urgent trip to China. I need to leave. Yeah, exactly. But wait a minute, am I hired? I asked, am I hired or not? What's the next step? So obviously what they wanted to see, if I would have the courage to ask them, hey, am I hired or not? And what about the next step? So those things are coming really, really handy. The fourth and last topic would be executive presence. So the idea here is, are you trying to get a bunch of guys in their early 20s wearing hoodies to convince a 50-odd-year-old CIO to change their strategy and point of view? Think again. No challenger methodology, no training is going to help with this. I mean, ultimately, the sales professional should look, think, talk, and walk like the people they're trying to sell to, because they have to relate to them, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And, obviously, if age is not on the side of your sales executive, it simply isn't. But there are things that you can do to kind of balance the scales in terms of executive presence, and very simple techniques like helping them mirror their buyer is important. Having the type of lingo, the type of presence that resonates with their buyer is important. Preparing them in such a way that they are actually able to articulate the issues and the problems that the buyer face, with a bit of themselves in it, So yes, say they were selling to a CEO who is of an older generation and they are of a younger generation, fair enough. But if they are able to talk about the challenges within the CIO's marketplace, and then put a bit of a spin in terms of maybe how this works in their life as a younger generation person, I think the CIO in this instance would be quite impressed, in acknowledging that this guy actually, or this woman actually knows what happens in their world in terms of what's keeping them awake at night and some of the challenges that they're trying to address. But more importantly, maybe what they bring to the table is a fresher way of looking at this and resolving their problems. So there are things that you can play to your advantage, but executive presence is important. How they appear, how they sound, how they are able to put their messages across. to get the buy-in from the buyer or the customer prospect is hugely important. And again, you can screen some of these via the conversations you're having with your salesperson.
Absolutely.
And, you know, yeah.
Absolutely. It's all about mirroring. It's a great point, Maggie, you made there. You have to be a mirror for the people who are buying from you. Again, so guys, hiring the sales guy is no easy task. So it takes time, it takes effort, and sometimes it might even make sense to hire more than one person at the same time, throw in a little bit of competition and see what works for you. But regardless, if you take a long, hard look at your company, your most successful people, your competitors, and the job descriptions of the competitors on LinkedIn and the kind of jobs that they're posting, you should be able to gather a good understanding of the criteria that's needed for the job, for the task, and it should give you a really good head start and increase your chances of success. So just to recap, in terms of drive, just make sure that you understand what drives your candidate and make a clear connection between them achieving their goal and achieving your quota. Then ensure that you give them the right tools and put in the right metrics in place to measure the performance, identify areas of improvement, and simply provide the training that they need to help them improve. When it comes to sales acumen, you might not want to go overboard looking for a very expensive sales guru. Sometimes it might make sense to hire relatively junior salespeople with some sales experience and give them the onboarding, the sales methodologies, the sales process and tools that they need to be successful. Also, make sure you know your numbers, how many calls, meetings you need to do per day, a week to be able to close a deal, and make sure that you measure those on a weekly and daily basis. When it comes to intellect, simply conducting role plays during the hiring process can help you identify this. And last, executive presence. Ultimately, your sales professionals should look, talk, walk, and behave like the people you want them to sell to. Get them to mirror what the client does. Right, Maggie?
Absolutely. Right, so now that we've got everything we need to hire the best-in-class sales team, why don't we go ahead and give you the extra tip to get there? What we've provided for you in the bottom of this video is a guide, and this guide will highlight the 4 key attributes that we've just described. And more importantly, we're also going to suggest some types of questions that can help you, not just stay at the first level, but you go a second level deeper, and possibly a third level deeper in questioning your candidate, so you will come up with the cream candidates that you need to do the right job. And that is how you're going to build best-in-class sales teams.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone. Hope you enjoy it. Bye.